That gut feeling when someone invites you to something and you already know it's going to be a waste of time. The awkwardness of explaining why you don't want to go. The guilt of preferring your own company to people who only talk about empty things. You're not broken. You just understand something most people haven't figured out yet. Why do you feel physical revulsion when someone starts talking about the weather? It's not impatience. It's not arrogance. It's something much deeper that your brain detected before you could even name it. Every time someone brings up traffic, what they had for lunch, what show they're watching, part of you withers inside. As if your vital energy is being drained drop by drop. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince about a concept that perfectly explains this: the economy of political energy. He said a wise ruler must carefully calculate where to invest attention, because energy wasted on useless conversations is power lost forever. Every minute spent on superficiality is a minute not invested in something that truly matters. Think of your mind as a battery that discharges with each interaction. Deep conversations recharge that battery. Empty conversations drain it. You're not being difficult when you avoid small talk. You're being strategic. You're protecting your most valuable resource, your capacity for focused thought. Think about your last mandatory social interaction, that moment when you smiled while someone talked about irrelevant things. Can you remember the physical sensation? The fatigue that comes after? It's not body fatigue, it's soul fatigue. It's your mind protesting against the waste of neural energy. Neuroscience confirms this. Your brain consumes about 20% of your body's total energy. When you force attention on conversations without substance, you're literally spending mental fuel on something that returns no value. It's like using a Ferrari engine to push a wheelbarrow. Today, social media has intensified this problem exponentially. Everyone feels obligated to have opinions about everything, to comment on any topic, to fill every silence with noise. You're surrounded by people addicted to external validation through empty conversations. And when you refuse to participate in this theater, they call you antisocial. But observe this pattern. People who talk most about small talk are those with the least interesting inner lives. Those who need to fill every silence with words usually fear what they might discover in silence. Next time you feel that revulsion in empty conversation, stop and observe. It's not rudeness, it's your mental self-preservation instinct working. Your brain is warning you that this interaction is consuming resources without return. The solution isn't to force interest where none exists. It's to accept that your mind works differently and stop blaming yourself for it. It'll be uncomfortable at first. You'll feel bad, but observe what happens to your energy. Notice how you feel when you stop forcing interest in things that don't interest you. It's liberating. It's like taking off tight shoes after a whole day. For more detailed research, consult Machiavelli, Niccolò, The Prince, Chapter 23, on how princes should manage their time and attention. But there's a crucial difference between avoiding people out of fear and choosing people by criteria. One thing is fleeing the world due to social anxiety. Something completely different is having high standards for where you invest your attention. The most sociable person you know might be the loneliest, and the person everyone calls antisocial might be the one with the deepest relationships. Jung defined this in psychological types. Introversion isn't shyness or a social problem, it's directing psychic energy toward the inner world. The introvert energizes by processing experiences internally. The extrovert energizes by collecting stimuli from the external world. Neither is a defect, but there's a dangerous confusion our society makes, treating every preference for solitude as a problem to be corrected, as if there's only one healthy way to exist socially. Think about a party where you meet 50 people superficially versus a 2-hour conversation with someone who truly understands how you think. Which of these experiences leaves you more energized? Which makes you feel more connected to other human beings? The answer reveals something fundamental about how your psyche works. Jung discovered that forcing introverts to behave like extroverts causes neurotic exhaustion. It's like forcing a right-handed person to write with their left hand. Technically possible, but unnecessarily draining. The problem isn't being socially selective. The problem is living in a culture that confuses quantity of contacts with quality of relationships. That values the ability to make small talk at events more than the capacity for meaningful conversations with important people. When you avoid superficial interactions, you're not running from people. You're preserving mental energy to invest in connections that truly matter. You're choosing depth over breadth. Jung observed that people forced to operate against their natural psychological type develop symptoms. Social anxiety, feelings of inadequacy, exhaustion after social events. Not because they're problematic, but because they're trying to be something they're not. Freedom comes when you stop trying to fit the extroverted model of sociability and start honoring your own way of connecting with the world. For more detailed research, consult Jung in Psychological Types, Chapter 10. Definition of the concepts of introversion and extroversion. Nietzsche had a specific name for people like you, for those who choose quality over quantity in relationships, for those who prefer one deep conversation to 10 superficial ones. He called these people something that can completely change how you see yourself. There's a silent panic that strikes when you realize you prefer being alone to participating in conversations you consider empty. Am I pretentious? Do I think I'm better than others? This doubt is natural because our culture confuses selectivity with arrogance, but Nietzsche made a fundamental distinction in human, all too human, that can relieve this guilt. He differentiated two types of people, those who withdraw out of contempt and those who withdraw out of inner necessity. The former are driven by toxic superiority, the latter are driven by genuine thirst for depth. The difference lies in the dominant emotion. When you avoid certain conversations, what do you predominantly feel? Anger and irritation at others, stupidity, or simply tired indifference, like someone who finds no nourishment in that type of interaction. Free spirits, the term Nietzsche used, don't spend emotional energy despising others. They simply gravitate naturally toward where they find intellectual stimulation. It's the difference between active rejection and natural selection. Imagine a classical musician at a party where only funk plays. He doesn't leave hating funk or thinking he's superior to others. He simply recognizes that environment doesn't nourish his soul the way he needs. It's not moral judgment, it's compatibility of needs. The problem arises when you try to force interest where none exists, or when you feel guilty for not being able to adapt to every type of conversation. This generates unnecessary internal conflict. Nietzsche realized that certain minds need solitude and selectivity not out of arrogance, but out of psychological necessity to process the world more deeply. It's like some plants that need more shade. It's not a defect, it's nature. The guilt you feel is social programming. You were taught that a good person adapts to any social situation, that flexibility is always virtue. But sometimes too much flexibility is betrayal of your own nature. For more detailed research, consult Friedrich Nietzsche, Human, All Too Human, Aphorism 225, on the nature of free spirits. But how do you quickly identify if someone is a free spirit like you, or just another person seeking validation through empty conversations? There's a simple method that works in less than 5 minutes of conversation. Observe how different people react to silence in conversation. Some get desperate to fill it with anything. Others stay comfortable, letting silence breathe. This difference reveals more about compatibility than hours of empty talk. Schopenhauer wrote in Parerga and Paralipomena about the fundamental difference between two classes of people, those who have something to say and those who need to say something. The former speak when they have content. The latter speak to avoid emptiness. When you find someone who can stay in silence comfortably, who doesn't need to fill each pause with weather comments or forced jokes, you've found someone with their own inner life, someone who doesn't depend on constant external stimulus to feel real. But how do you identify these people quickly, without wasting time on conversations that drain your energy? Pay attention to the quality of questions they ask. Interesting people ask questions that reveal genuine curiosity about how your mind works, about your experiences, about your perspectives. Empty people ask questions that are pretext to talk about themselves. Also observe how they handle disagreement. Deep people get curious when you think differently. They want to understand your reasoning. Superficial people get defensive or try to immediately convert you to their opinion. There's another even more revealing sign. People worth your time can talk about their own perspective changes. They can say, I used to think X, but changed my mind because Y. This shows mental flexibility and capacity for growth. Intellectually rigid people never admit evolution in thinking. For them, changing minds is a sign of weakness, not learning. Most interesting is that when you develop this natural filter, you stop getting frustrated with superficial people. You simply recognize them quickly and adjust your expectations. You don't force depth where it doesn't exist. For more detailed research, consult Arthur Schopenhauer, Parerga and Paralipomena, Volume 2, Section 26, on the Art of Conversation. Now that you know how to identify these people, you need to learn how to create conversations that nourish both sides. There's a specific technique that transforms any superficial dialogue into a memorable experience for both parties. The difference between a memorable conversation and a forgettable one isn't in the subject, it's in the intention behind the questions. When Socrates conversed in the Athens agora, he had no interest in empty talk or impressing anyone with knowledge. His goal was to awaken in others the capacity to think more deeply about their own beliefs and experiences. In Plato's dialogues, we see Socrates use a simple but powerful approach. He genuinely listened to what the person said, identified interesting premises behind superficial words, and asked questions that invited the person to explore their own ideas more deeply. The secret wasn't having ready answers, but asking better questions. Instead of automatically agreeing when someone makes an obvious statement, Socrates would ask, "What made you reach that conclusion?" Or, "Have you always thought this way?" This approach works because most people are rarely invited to explain the reasoning behind their opinions. When you show genuine curiosity about how they think, not to judge but to understand, they feel seen in a rare way. Most interesting is that this technique quickly reveals whether the person has substance or just repeats others' opinions. People with their own thinking can explain how they reach their conclusions. People who only echo others get uncomfortable when they need to justify what they say. But there's a crucial difference between interrogating and conversing. Socrates didn't attack people, he invited them to reflection. His curiosity was genuine, not performative. He really wanted to understand how they saw the world. Do you have a phrase that defines this video for you? Write it there. I want to read each one. When you master this skill, you realize you can create depth in any conversation, but you can also quickly identify when the person doesn't want or can't go beyond the surface. And that's liberating, because you stop forcing connections where they're not possible. The goal isn't to convert everyone to your conversation style, it's to find people who are already ready for more meaningful dialogues and honor those who prefer to remain on the surface. For more detailed research, consult Plato, Meno, 80dd, 81a, on the Socratic method of questioning to awaken latent knowledge. Your need for deep conversations isn't a defect to be corrected, it's a characteristic to be honored. The world needs people who don't accept superficiality as norm, who insist on genuine connections, who value quality over quantity in relationships. You don't need to explain yourself to those who don't understand why you prefer one deep conversation to 10 superficial ones. The right people will recognize and value this characteristic. The wrong people will keep calling you antisocial, and that's valuable information about who they are. Of everything I said here, what would you most like to teach someone you care about? Keep being selective. Keep prioritizing depth. Keep trusting your instinct when a conversation doesn't nourish your soul. The world has too much superficiality and too few genuine people. Now you understand how to honor your nature without isolating yourself from the world. Click the video on screen. You'll discover how Machiavelli managed to be respected even being selective, and how to apply these principles to never be disrespected again. Click the video on screen now.